All right, welcome to Unbreakable Men. Today, it's me and Royal talking about real conversations that men usually don't have. We're talking about the things that we have been conditioned not to really talk about or think about because we are considered men. And I think that as far as men, we have to have a safe space that we could open up, that we could talk because, they say women are more emotional, which can maybe be true, but I think they just show their emotions possibly more. And it's not that they're technically more emotional, but that's what we're going to talk about today is what it takes to be an unbreakable man. Because I know a lot of times people tell us, I've had a lot of women tell me, man up, but
Mhm.
what does that even really mean?
Yeah.
So let's get into that today and talk about it. So, Royal, introduce yourself. Let's talk and tell everybody who you are, and then we'll kind of get into the subject of what an unbreakable man is.
Well, hello. Yes, so I'm Royal Poor. We do the Unbreakable Men, and same thing. It's just like Jacob was talking about. We're definitely trying to learn and be a little bit more comfortable on being able to talk about our feelings, about what we do, what kind of gets us in that maybe fear mode or concerns, things like that, that we don't really normally always show people, and we kind of shut down or don't say anything. So being able to have a spot to where we can actually talk and find out what really gets what gets us and how do we be able to work through this. So
Yeah, I think that's good. I think too often us as men are told don't show your
yeah,
emotions, don't feel stuff. But I really think I used to think it was a sign of weakness if you show your emotions, but nowadays I feel like it's a sign of strength. Like actually shows that you're stronger as a man because you're not just going to hide all these things and you can actually show your emotions, your feelings, and express them. But it's also healthy for us because if we just hold in everything our whole life,
yeah,
where's that really going to get us? We're just going to kind of be stuck because we're holding everything in. I used to tell myself like, "Oh, I'm strong. I'm just going to build up these walls around my heart so I could protect myself." But the truth of the matter is, one day God told me, "You're keeping me out, but you're not by yourself anymore." I started thinking about that. I have kids, I have family, I have loved ones. When I build up these walls, I also keep them out. So I don't think that showing your emotions or talking about things makes you a weak man or a weak person, but I think it actually makes you stronger and it's a sign of strength.
yeah. No, and that's true. I mean, I've gotten to that when I was growing up. It was always told that don't count on anybody. Nobody's going to be there for you. You have to do everything on your own. It was just something that was embedded in me and was uh, really put me in that spot that I didn't couldn't count on anybody, and that was not a good place to be because we are here all to help each other out and help grow, especially whenever we do have our whenever things happen and we have a hard time. Who do we turn to? Especially, both of my parents are gone, so I don't have them to talk to anymore. So it's you do need other people, and you need them in your space to help guide you, things that they've ran into that they need help with. And I've seen that before. I've watched other people grow, and I had one gentleman that showed me how to be kind to others, and I didn't have that before. It was they. I was always like, "Well, you don't know what you're talking about. Get out of here," and it was a bad deal. So,
Yeah. No, that's good. I think, what does it really take to be unbreakable man? Because we're supposed to be the heads of our households, right? So if we're
Mhm.
supposed to be the head of our household, but what happens when we break? What
Yes,
happens when we start struggling? What happens when we start dealing with things that we don't know how to deal with, but then we've been taught our whole life? We don't bring it to others. We do it by ourselves. We just man up. We just hold it in. We don't talk about how we feel. We don't talk about our emotions. And it's like at some point that's going to make you break. And we're talking about being an unbreakable man, but it's not only that, it's not just about being an unbreakable man or an unbreakable woman. It's actually having an unbreakable family and an unbreakable community because when you're strong, it makes everybody else around you stronger.
yes,
I think that's an important thing to realize as we're talking about how to be unbreakable, but then what society teaches us is pretty much going to break anybody. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, young, or old. It doesn't matter how strong you are. Eventually, at some point, you're going to break.
yeah,
And I think once we could start talking about these things, we could release them. And God even told me one time, if you could, you know, the things you hide, it's hard to heal. So if we're always hiding things, how are we supposed to heal those things? But once we talk about it, we could release it. He told me like if I could write it down, even because journaling is considered soft for men. Like we're not supposed to journal because if we journal that you're considered soft and weak.
Yeah.
But the truth is God told me one time that if I could write it, I could release it, which you start processing at a different level than you normally would once you start writing it down. And for me, I had to kind of switch it a little bit because I was like, all right, well, journaling's soft and weak, and I'm not soft or weak. So I have to be masculine and I have to do this. But so I started writing books and I still journal and then I'll turn it into a book. And I'm like, yeah, I'm an author or I write it. But it's just mentally, I'm still trying to get over that hump of, all right, how do I journal as a man and still be masculine?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people in society tell you it's not.
Yeah. No, and you're right. I mean, definitely writing it out, that communication, bringing it out. There's a book that I really love a bunch. It's called Joshua Mudcalf, Chop Wood, Carry Water. Helps
Mm,
you trust the process and, be able to grow into what you need to. Um, that was one big thing that I really enjoyed. So that really kind of hit home and start doing the things, just start even whenever you don't want to. There's times that you feel like you don't want to do anything. And
yeah.
I've been there. And so once you start really pushing yourself, yeah, it's one of those things that definitely,
Yeah, I think
helps.
John Maxwell said that a lot of the growth happens in the middle. It's not when we just stay not doing anything at
Yeah.
all, or when we're trying to do too much. It's in the middle where we have to kind of sometimes sit with our emotions, our feelings, figure out how to a way to process it, going to another man and being like, hey, I'm not feeling strong today. I'm feeling like I'm a failure. I feel like I'm
Mhm.
failing my family. I feel like I'm failing myself. I feel like everything around me is collapsing. But then we're able to go and open up and share with somebody and be like, all right, well, I am struggling today. And then, you know what? The thing I realized is once I'm vulnerable, that, and I open up and start talking to other men, that actually they start sharing with me, you know what? I've been struggling with the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, wow, I thought I was alone and I'm isolating. I'm trying to do it all by myself. But now I realize that you're struggling with the same thing. He's struggling with the same thing. We're all struggling here. But why are we trying to do it alone if we're all struggling? I
Yes.
think that's one of the important things about this community that we're building is it's really for us men to know that we aren't alone, that we have other people just like ourselves that are struggling, and we could have a community that comes together and we could talk about these things that men normally don't talk about because, we talk about all the good things in life. I realize as people and humans, we love to talk about, put on this facade of all the great things that are going on.
Mhm.
But what happens when it's not all so great? And then you go around, you just hear everybody like, oh, my family's doing good. My son just graduated. You're doing this. But for me, it's like
Yes.
my oldest son's struggling with addiction and in a mental health hospital. And my other kids are struggling and my marriage is falling apart. What do I do? And then eventually I got divorced and now I just feel like on the other end of the spectrum where I'm even more alone because everybody else has the perfect life and mine's just broken and shattered. And we are breakable as people because we're all human, we all have flesh.
Mhm.
But I believe that God never created us to do things alone.
No. No, and you're right about that. I mean, because and that's the thing. Sometimes our mind really starts going the wrong direction. It starts making us feel like, we get that jealousy. We get that, we want that and we try to push for that. And sometimes we don't need to do that. We just need to enjoy. And then at that also just the communication, being able to talk and work with each other. Same way with the relationships and things like that. And relationships, I mean, by with friends and your wife or girlfriend or whoever it is, really, really having that communication and that open communication. But how do you do that,
Mm,
right? Because then there's sometimes that they get mad or they don't understand. So it's really trying to break through to the understanding,
yeah.
and those that can be a challenge of its own sometimes. So how do you do that?
That's a really good point. I mean, they teach us a lot of things in school, but a lot of it,
Mhm.
they don't teach you how to lose in life, right? So when you feel
Yes.
like you're losing as a man, you're like, well,
Yeah,
I'm supposed to be a winner. I'm supposed to be a champion. I'm supposed to
that's right.
get first place all the time. And now I'm in last place or
Yeah.
I just got disqualified. And then, we feel like we're struggling all the time, but we don't have anybody to talk to because they don't teach us these things. Like, how do you communicate in school? I realized at one point that the school district decided, or the schools, not just the school district, but the schools decided that physical education was important. So they created something called PE, which stands for physical education.
Yeah.
But I feel like at this point, we almost need some like mental and emotional education, teach us how to
Yes.
express our emotions, because I feel like so many young adults, so many young kids are struggling, and then they start hurting themselves, especially as men. Like the only one emotion that we're actually allowed to express that's okay with society is anger,
Yep, it is true.
or hurting ourselves, or something like we're tough, we're strong. But the truth is, nobody actually ever teaches us how to express our emotions in a healthy way, teaches us how to have healthy thoughts, because our mental capacity is just too much, and we're trying to do too much, and things just keep compiling. And then at the end of the day, we want to break. It's like at some point we have to learn how to do this. They don't teach how to love.
Mhm.
So where do we learn how to love from? The people around us, and most of them have broken love. Like
Mhm.
you look at the older generations, men don't talk, women just, submit or do whatever with their husband. And it's just like everything's broken. And that's who you're learning to love from. Like even my parents from this day, they got divorced
Yeah.
20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, and they still don't talk.
Mhm.
So am I supposed to learn love from them? Because I'm trying to learn love from them, it's going to be messed up. So nobody teaches us how to love. Nobody teaches us how to be in a relationship. Nobody teaches us how to express ourselves in a healthy way. Nobody teaches us how to challenge our thoughts when we're struggling with our mental health.
And how to, sometimes whenever we lose, how do we get back up from it? Things like that. Whenever we get hurt pretty bad, I mean, it's like, how do you do that? What do you do? So not being shown that is that I know that was one that I was having quite a bit of, and it was felt like I was not worth anything, never could do anything right, and just had a lot of but never had that guidance, nobody to show me that 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 the motivations, any of that kind of stuff
And it's all right
really
not
kind of
to be
pushed
all
me.
right, too.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And I
How do you
think
do that? Yeah.
exactly, how do you do that? And that's what we want to talk about. And, for me, my faith is a big part of everything I do in life, right? My faith is ingrained in me, and I love God and I love Jesus, but I understand that not everybody has the same relationship. Maybe you have a different religion. Maybe you don't believe in God. Maybe the church hurts you. Maybe a Christian hurts you. Maybe somebody hurts you. I get that because I've been hurt too. Or maybe your beliefs are just a little bit different than ours. But for me, my faith is definitely one of the pillars of my foundations of where I stand in life. And I feel that Jesus, the Son of God, came down,
Mhm.
and he's the Son of God. He could have done anything. He could have been like, oh, I got this, and just do it. But he chose 12 to go with him. And they weren't 12 people that were perfect, that knew the law, that were walking in righteousness. They were 12 broken people that had problems, 12 people that were struggling, 12 men that were hurt, broken. And he said, you know what? I'm choosing these people to go with me. He didn't say, I'm going to go do this by myself. I'm not going to go just struggle and go through this, or I'm going to go rise by myself. I'm going to actually bring you guys with me so you could go do the work afterwards. You could, go tell the rest of the world about me or whatever. But like, he didn't just say, all right, I'm going to do it by myself. And that is God. So why do we think sometimes we have to do it by ourselves?
That's right. Yeah.
Because we're not better than God, and we aren't God. But here we are thinking, all right, well, you know what? I could do this by myself. I'm strong enough. I'm a man, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes it takes more strength to ask for help. And I think that's one thing that we have to look at as an unbreakable man, is sometimes we have to realize that it's a strength and not a weakness to go to another brother and say, look, Royal, I'm struggling today. Like, a lot of people ask me, it's, how you doing today? I'm like, oh, I'm okay. I'm good. But that's just my default answer. The truth
Mhm.
is, sometimes inside, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to make it through the week. I don't know if I'm going to make it through the month. My kids are struggling. I'm struggling. Everything's falling apart around me. And I don't know what to do, and I have nobody to talk to.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say it's all good. I did timeshare marketing when I was younger, one of these bigger timeshares, and this boss of mine, he's like the sales director or something or another, some pretty big guy in the company. And he told me one time, like, when people ask how you doing, just always say great, because it's a mindset, something that you're going to have to do. It's, you're always great.
Mhm.
I started thinking about it later. I was like, you know what, that is probably the worst advice I ever had, because we're not always great, we're not always good. everything isn't okay. It's all right. Now, on the opposite side of that, I don't want to be one of these people who everything's always bad, right?
Right.
But I don't always have to be the person who everything's always great either. Sometimes it's all right to be in the middle. Sometimes, like I said in the beginning, that's where John Maxwell said most of the growth happens is when we're in the middle. Like it's not totally bad, but it's not totally good. It's like we have to grow from that point that we're at. And it's all right not to be all right. So I think that's one of the important things just for the audience to know is you don't always have to be some strong man who has it all together, who has all the answers. I even know a lot of guys who just will always say they know. And it's like, well, you know what? Like, I'm just talking to you and you're telling me you know. It's like everything, you're too ashamed to say that maybe you don't know. Well, that's all right too. You don't always have to be strong. You don't always have to know. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength for you to even go say, hey, bro, I don't know how to do this. Can you show me how to do it?
No, and you're right. So, I mean, there's times that, well, I mean, it was, oh man, I'm sorry. Let me make sure I got it right. So, usually, it was that the negative comes out so easy, and you're always afraid that they're going to start judging you. And not that then you're afraid to even say anything. But then whenever you do sometimes say stuff, they always want to correct you or shun you for what you're saying. So, you know, that was something that I was running into and things like that. Um, but you have to really look at it. You can take it as a grain of salt, or you can take it as a, you know, something that an idea that they give you, and you have to decide which way you want to go with it. If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes we hear the wrong way, the wrong approach that people are trying to talk to you. Does that make sense? So,
Absolutely. Sometimes it's so much ingrained in us that even when somebody's trying to say something nice, we take it the wrong way because we're so used to people talking to us that way, or it's just the way that we're thinking. So hard to get over that thought pattern or shift that the way that we're thinking that we get stuck on like, oh, they're saying it this way or that way. And I've been guilty of that a lot. Sometimes people say something, then all of a sudden I'm arguing with them or trying to tell them something like, no, man, it's not even like that. I was just telling you, like,
Yeah,
I
I
was
didn't
just
mean it
telling,
like
yeah,
that. I'm sorry
exactly.
that you took it that way, but that's not what I meant at all. So, you know, it is. It's embedded in our minds. Sometimes we think the wrong thing, and we hear the wrong thing, and we have to try to change that. You know, I loved it whenever I was, and what I mean, and I'll go with this. This is a good analogy. I was driving down the road, and there was a kid that was, you know, had his pants sagging pretty low and had a mean look on his face, and he was just mad at the world. He seemed like, and then after that, I drove by, and he saw me, and he looked in my eyes, and I looked at him, and I waved at him, and I was smiling, and all of a sudden, the mean look changed into a happy look. You know, so it was really cool to see that. You know, it's also how do we approach people, and then after that, give them that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
I think too often I've heard the saying, let's see if I could get it right now. It's we judge people by their actions,
yes,
but we judge ourselves or want other people to judge us by our intentions. So we intended to do something and we should, you know, it should be the right thing. But other people, we look at their actions and like, what's wrong with them? Why are they doing this? We're so judgmental.
yeah,
But then it's like we want to be judged by our intentions, the things that we meant to do, even though it may not turn out right. But we had a good intention behind it and we started to do something. It didn't work out. And now people are judging us by our actions and not our intentions. But we want to do the same thing. We want to judge people by their actions, like what's wrong with them, instead of actually looking at the heart and saying, well, what were they really trying to do? Was it they meaning to go about it that way, or did it just happen that way? And the intention was actually good, but the action actually didn't turn out that well. I think those are things that we have to look at a lot because us as men, you know, we think that we have to put on this facade of just we're so manly, we're so strong, we can handle this, we got this, we could do it. And then sometimes it doesn't work out right. Sometimes we don't even know how to do it. We just try to do it, which we should give men more credit for trying to do something different. Like even I know Royal, for you, being on a podcast in front of the mic isn't your most comfortable thing.
no, it's not.
You like being behind the equipment. You like being on the other side of it and actually doing the stuff. And
Yes,
I know it's not as easy being like, all right, I'm going to do this. But even you stepping out takes a lot of courage.
yeah,
But a lot of people won't even do that, especially men. They're like, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm this type of man. I'm a rough type of man. I'm not going to show my emotion or tell people how I feel. And it's like, I'm not going to get in front of a camera and start talking about what men need to do because I don't know for like, even when you guys ask me to be on this, I'm like, well, I'm kind of a broken man, and you really want me to get on an Unbreakable podcast? Like, I'm broken. I'm divorced. I only get my kids half the time. I have a son who just transitioned from a mental health hospital to a transition home. And I feel like there's a lot of broken things and I'm not good enough. And you should go find a perfect man. But I don't think that's what an Unbreakable Man's about.
No,
It's about
there's no perfect man out there, just not. So
exactly.
this is where we all have to work, help each other out. I've got mine too. There was just a lot of I was treated pretty bad back then, and I felt like I was worth nothing.
Mm,
So I never tried. I never pushed. There was a lot of not that. Then now I know that I can do anything and everything that I want to if I put my mind to it. And that's one thing that we can all do. And sometimes we feel like we have. Well, I mean, those times I felt like I had nothing, and there's a lot that you can do.
well, it's hard also because if you think about it, you've been told your whole life that you're nothing, you
Yes.
can't do it, you have no value.
Mhm.
And now your wife's like, do this Unbreakable podcast
Yeah.
and for men. And you're like, well, I'm still those voices in the back of your
Yes.
head. I know a lot has changed, but you still have those voices that are like,
Nope.
you're not good enough to do this. You can't do it. You're still broken. You don't have, you're not a valuable enough man. You should be some high
Yeah.
profile.
No, but you do it anyway. That's the
Exactly.
thing. It's one of those things where you do it, you try it, you like it. If you see if you like it or you don't. There's a lot of things that I tried and I really enjoyed, and there's some things that I didn't. So it's just you have to try. And like right now, I'm trying to do this. So
Yeah.
it's
And I think that's where the growth happens,
yeah.
though, because if we always just stay in our comfort zone, we always
Mhm.
stay in the place of comfort, we're never really going to grow.
Yes.
And that's how we become breakable, too, is because we stay and then we become fragile and then we don't move out of our comfort zone. And then something happens and then our world falls apart to where it's like, let's push ourselves out of our comfort zone. Let's keep growing. Let's keep experimenting. Let's see what happens because what's the worst that's going to happen on this podcast? Like, yeah, I struggle with a lot of self doubt and self worth too. But God even told me one day, like, if you don't know your values, you won't know your worth. And it's like, that's really true. If I don't know my values, I won't know my worth because honestly, those are things that I kind of just adapted from whatever I saw. It's like, not like I sat down one day and it's like, all right, I need to create values in my life. I need to set standards. I need to do all this until everything around me just collapsed. It broke. The next thing I knew, I was like, all right, well, maybe I should have some standards. Maybe I should have some values. And once I started to do that, started to understand my own worth more because I understood that without my values, I didn't understand my worth. And sometimes we just take the value of what other people are saying. You're not worth anything. It's like, well, is that my worth? Is nothing? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even worth sitting here and talking to people and opening up because I'm so broken. But I think I heard something one time and it's pretty deep. It was going back to the Bible. I'm going to refer to that a little bit. But when Jacob was having Benjamin, his wife actually called him and named him Benoni. I
Mhm.
believe that's the right name, which meant,
Banana. Yeah.
yeah, son of my struggle.
Struggles. Yeah.
But then Jacob's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to name him Benjamin, which means son of my strength,
Mhm.
which I think a lot of times it goes hand in hand, right? Our strength equals, our struggles equal more of our strength. And that's how we become stronger is through our struggles.
That's right.
And without our
Yeah.
struggles, sometimes it'd be hard to grow or get stronger or become more. So by those people telling you you're not worth anything, by people telling me I'm not worth anything, by not knowing my value and thinking about that myself, my whole life has actually made me stronger because I've pushed. Now, some people push in the opposite way. I have to prove that I'm strong. I have to prove that I'm smart. I have to prove that I'm this or that. But I wasn't ever like that. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to push myself to become better. If I could become 1% better every day, then eventually I'm going to keep growing and growing and growing.
Mhm.
And even the Bible, it says little by little till you can take possession of land. That's out of Exodus 23:30, which for me was a big thing because I was like, all right, one of the actually best verses I ever heard, little by little, because me as a man, I always think I have to go from 0 to 100. I
Yeah.
have to go from where I am. And now all of a sudden, I have to be strong. I have to be, have everything, know everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, God's saying little by little, but till you could take possession of the land. And that came from the Exodus, which the Israelites were leaving Egypt, and when they were leaving Egypt, God's telling them, "I have this promised land for you.
Mm-hmm.
Go into the promised land." And we think a lot of times I have to just go take it over.
Yeah.
But I heard one time that there's a lot of things that they weren't familiar with because it's a different land than they came from. It's different than Egypt, to where they have all this quail and they have all this food and they get fed every day and they have all this, the luxuries of life, to where they're going in. There's different animals, there's different things. And, I heard one pastor say one time there's you know, bigger, lions and things that they've never dealt with before. So he actually kept the enemies in the land to show them how to deal with those and all that. But the way I heard him explain it is, what is a pack of lions called? It's a pride.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we have pride that goes with it, or self-doubt, or other things that go with it. We're really proud, and we have this pride inside of us that
Yeah.
we have to do this, especially as men. We have to do that, especially as men. But God always prepares us. And I think no matter what happened to us as a man, that God's preparing us. Like, even if you think about it, Moses should have been killed as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Then his mom floats him down the river. And then the princess of Egypt, or whatever, the Pharaoh's daughter, finds him. And the crazy thing, she actually ended up hiring Moses' mom to take care of him. So it's like, sometimes we have to put these things in the trust of God. I'm like, all right, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But he's like, I got you. It's going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets a little bit older, and then he kills an Egyptian. And then he has to take off in the wilderness for, like, I think it's 40 years, to be honest, which is the crazy
Wow.
thing, because then he comes back and he's in the wilderness for 40 years. But if you think about it, part of the reason why God sent Moses out in the first place, it wasn't just because he killed somebody, is preparation for the plans he had for him, because he's going to lead all his people out there, and he had to know how to survive and live
Mm-hmm.
and deal with all these things. And I think a lot of times we look at the bad stuff that's happened to us and we're like, I'm not worth anything. I'm broken.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an unbreakable man. I'm broken and I'm hurt. All that. And God's like, wait, what are you talking about? I've been preparing you your whole life,
Yeah.
even with the things and the words that people said. Like, they said as a kid, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt me. Honestly, at some point, I'd rather have sticks and stones, because those words stick with us.
Yeah,
Like, they
they
still
do.
hurt. They still
Yeah.
trigger stuff. And I'm just like, wow, that hurts. But, as we grow, I look back, and every bad thing that I've ever been through, I realized is preparation for what the plan
Mm-hmm.
God had for me, to where he brought me to now, to help other people, to have that empathy and that heart, to understand what people are going through, for even my son to go through his addiction and to go through his mental health. Now I have a ministry that I'm helping people, mainly the families of the individuals struggling with mental health and addiction, because we alone, or a lot of times, feel like we're alone. We isolate ourselves. Nobody understands us. And truth is, a lot of people don't. Like, how
Yeah.
can you understand something that you've never been through?
Mm-hmm.
But now, Royal's here talking about his experience of how he had to find his own value and his own worth. And sometimes we don't feel like we should be even on this podcast. But now he's going to be able to help millions and millions of people by speaking his words and sharing his story and his testimony of how he feels. There's going to be a lot of men out there that say, you know what? I understand. And I feel the same way you feel, Royal. So I
Yeah.
think it's a big thing.
Well, I appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, yeah, it's building the muscles for you, the empathy muscles, and also the things that we've been through. How do you, um, it is.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah, and you're exactly right about the pride. That's a big one that we have. I've had that pride really strong, and then after that, when things started falling, that really started making me fall.
Mm.
And I had to really work on getting out of that type of mindset. You're right. Things are going to happen. How do you handle that? And you just keep moving on as well. So you don't stop. And whenever you don't feel like anything's going well, and you keep on moving anyways, do it anyway. Is the biggest one. It's just always keep moving and finding you know what will help you, what will guide you that direction. And I've had some people in my life that really showed me a lot of things and how to be really really good. And it is we watch each other and we see how we work together. Kind of helps.
Oh, it does.
So I had a teacher. Uh, I'll never forget him. His name was Mr. Hankey, and I loved what
Mr.
he.
Hankey.
Yeah, he was
Love
so
it.
smart. We were at school, and I was in building trades, and in his class, he had a concrete table on the floor, and he says, "I bet you I can move this from here all the way to the other side of the room without having to pick it up and roll it. Just me, just getting it over there." And we were like, "No, there's no way. You can't do
Mm.
that. You can't pick that up and get it over there." He goes, "Okay." And so he grabbed it and he put a block underneath. He picked it up, put a block underneath it, and then moved it over just a little bit and did that. And he just kept inching it over to the other side of the
Wow.
room. He didn't say how long it was going to take,
Mm.
but he got it from one side of the room to the other. And then that gave me the motivation to say, well, I can do anything as well. Because same thing, going inside of a chimney, tearing out all the flue liners, and then climbing down inside of there and restacking it all by myself. I was able to do so, and I found
Wow.
ways to do it. Just was able to grab the buckets, put the ropes, and hang them to where I needed them. Was able to climb down inside of there and started building the tiles all back up. And so I knew that I could be able to do anything once I was able to see what he did. And that was, you know, a
Big
man that
accomplishment.
showed how to do that. So
Yeah.
these are things that if we can help each other with some ideas, things on how to show each other the importance. I mean, what are you looking for? What do you need help with? That's what we want to be able to be a part of.
Yeah, I love it because what you're just expressing is, I mean, sometimes it's easier to look back and be like, wow, I've learned so much from this person, that person, this
Yes.
person.
Yes.
It's sometimes hard to look forward and be like, all right, what am I supposed to learn right now? And who am I supposed to turn to? But if we look back, it's like, wow, that's how I learned. And I think I could be wrong on the numbers, so please don't quote me, but I think we learn 80% of how we learn is from visual, like
Mm-hmm.
seeing other people. But imagine if we're not around other people and we don't know how to do something and we want to learn something. If 80% of that comes from seeing, but we don't know how to do it, what are we going to do? Watch ourselves just not doing it? And don't get me wrong, we could keep trying. And it's a lot easier if you see somebody or go to somebody who's already been through it with that lived
Yes.
experience and then they show you how to do it. And like you were talking about, like your teacher or whatever that was showing you, like, how do you move this? And it's inch by inch. But a lot of times we just think, oh, we're talking about moving it quick, right?
No.
And he's
Yeah.
like, no, I never said that. I just said I bet I can move it. And I took some auto classes when I was younger. And I remember one teacher stuck with me a lot because he told me one time, like, we're working on a car. We had to try to, he just like break something and be like, all right, you guys got to figure this out before the end of
Mm-hmm.
class and then have it run in or fixed or whatever. And I'm like, all right. But one of the major things that stuck with me about what he said is like, don't just find what was broken or the problem, but find out what caused it.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was deep, not just for auto mechanics, but
Yeah.
for life. Like, if we want to be unbreakable men, don't just look at the problem. Yeah,
That's
maybe
very good.
I got a divorce. Maybe I have a son in a mental health hospital. Maybe I have a son struggling with addiction or whatever it is. But what was really the root of the problem? What's really the root of the problem inside of me? Because it doesn't matter. I tell my kids all the time, like, even my son, he plays soccer and they went up a level this year. So now they're playing harder teams. Last year, they got number one, first place. And now this year, they've won one game and lost two. And I told him yesterday, well, what do you think you could do better? And he's like, well, I think I could do this. And he gave me a couple of things. I was like, all right. I was like, the most important thing is to understand that it doesn't matter if you win or lose,
Mm-hmm.
but if you could grow from it, if you could learn from it. Because if we just keep doing the same thing over and over, they say that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
We're never growing from our mistakes. We're never growing from the things that are past, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I was nobody. Maybe I was worth nothing. But little by little by little, I start gaining value and I start realizing, you know what? I am someone. I am
Mm-hmm.
something. Maybe I didn't know how to do that. Maybe I wasn't book smart like you, but now I know how to do these other things.
Yeah.
I think that's where we get to in the level as being an unbreakable man is realizing that can we grow from our situations? Can we grow from our circumstances? And once we're able to do that, I think that's where just things as a man just start changing. It's like, can I open up and talk to Royal about some of these things I'm struggling with? Because if I keep hiding it, I'm keeping it to myself. And if I want to learn and grow, but Royal's already done it. Why wouldn't I go to him and be like, Royal, can you just share with me? Can you help me? I'm
Yeah.
struggling right now with this. I don't know how to do a chimney, but I'm trying to do chimneys right now. And you're like, bro, I've been doing chimneys most of my life. I know how to
Mhm.
do that. I could climb up and down, rebuild them by myself. I don't need 2 or 3 people nowadays. And it's
But
like,
yeah, but you know what I'm saying is there is that where you can be able to do it yourself, but do you really want to do all of it by yourself? And do you want to be able to teach others how to do it? You know, that's a
that's
big
good.
thing. You want others to know how to do it. That's I noticed that our society has gone away from that. A lot of
Mm,
people don't even know how to change a tire on their own. So I mean, it's
yeah.
just showing them how to do it and the importance and why we do it, and you know, helping each other grow and be be
Yeah.
that spot, to be where you need to be to help others
Mm,
and
that's a good
really
point.
enjoy it.
That's a really good point is, it's not just us maybe knowing how to do it and being able to do it ourselves, but are we sharing it with somebody? Are we sharing that gift that we have with somebody else to make sure they know how to do it? I know, like at school every year, especially for elementary school, they do this little shoelace fundraiser thing where you can buy these shoelaces that are like spiral. You
Hmm.
don't even have to tie your shoes nowadays. I'm like,
Oh
and I
yeah.
see a lot of these kids, they have the Velcro, and you ask most kids, like, can you tie your shoe? And they're like, no. But eventually, I mean, they should know how to tie a shoe. They should know how to tie a knot. When I was a kid, we had to learn how to tie knots and survive and do all these other things. And kids can't even tie their own shoe nowadays. And I'm like, well, that's a problem. And just kind of like you said, like there's a lot of things I feel in my life like I could do, and there's nothing. I feel like there's nothing I can't do by myself.
Mhm.
But I feel like when I'm with somebody else, I could do it so much better.
Yes. No, you're exactly right. I mean, that's what it is, and that's what we really need to bring back again is bring the men back to where you're comfortable to be comfortable with each other, because we used to have that. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that uh, we've gotten that fear. It's gotten that fear put into our mind that, oh, I've got to learn how to do this. I don't want to show anybody else, or else they're going to take it away from me.
Mm,
Well, who says? I mean, God gives us everything that we need, and we can work on that. You
yeah.
know, we if in my business, I had that fear. I was afraid to show anybody else what I do, the services that I do. I don't give them every detail of everything, but I mean, I help them understand how it works, right? And at that, so we need more people like that as well. We need more men that can be able to build and put things together. For example, you know, there's very there's not that many masons
Mm,
that I'm hearing from that really can build a home really strong and structural.
yeah.
So, and at that, they're afraid to teach others because they're afraid that it's going to be taken away from them.
Mm,
That's one thing that I really would love to be able to give to the hearts of the men is we don't need to be in that type of um, mindset.
yeah.
We really need to work together and be happy with each other, helping each other out.
I
If
think that
that makes sense on that.
Yeah, that makes
Mhm.
absolute sense. I mean, I think that's a big thing, especially for men. It's like, well, I don't want to give away what I know because it takes away value for me. Where I don't think that's the truth because when
No.
yeah, maybe even at some point, one or two of the people, become from the student to the teacher, and you're like, oh no, now I lost my value or now I lost my place. It's like, they're not you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep,
you're always going to be you. You're going to be unique because maybe it's
that's
with
right.
work, but what about you as a husband? What about you as a father? What about you as a man? Because it's more than just work. A lot of times, I've heard before that like men see their value as like what they bring home and how they provide and how they do this. But that's really not just your work is who you are as a man. You're so much more than that, Royal. You're a dad, a father, a husband. You're yeah,
Mhm.
also have your company and a businessman and all these other things, but it's so much more that creates a man and an unbreakable man than just one aspect of a man. Like I go to work and do that, and they say that a woman's like how she expresses her love, just how she emotionally loves you or whatever she does with you or whatever. And it's like a man's like how we financially provide. And it's like yeah, but a woman's more than that, and a man's more than that. A
Mhm.
woman's more than just how she loves you or how she kisses you or whatever it is. There's so much more to a woman than that, how she's your companion, how she's your friend, how she's there for you, how you could talk to her, the conversations you have. just like you as a man, there's so much more than just financially bringing home the money, which, yeah, that's one job of it, but also you guys are a team.
Hmm.
And a team isn't just dependent on one person, it's dependent on the
Yeah. And
every.
then, and you're right. I mean, that's going back to the communication, making sure that we understand each other. And sometimes we don't. I mean, it's like you said, the mind will really um, confuse it. And there's going to be those arguments, and you have to work through those. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I really do. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good.
This is the reason why I'm working on it. The better I can be able to do this. So, but yeah, I mean, it is. It's true.
And I think a lot of times, as far as men, like, I know a lot of men crushing it as far as bringing home money and work,
Yeah.
but then their families are falling apart, or this
Yeah.
is their fourth or fifth marriage, or they're not there for their kids and they don't even see their kids, and their kids don't even like them or whatever. But I think there's so much more. And that's why I think it's important, because, like, yeah, maybe you're doing better than me financially.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm doing better as a dad than you, and maybe you could teach me how to do better financially and, steward my money better. But maybe I could show you a couple things about how to spend more time with your kids and enjoy it, and not just have to think about work all the time and so much other things. Because you know why? I used to be with my kids every day, and now I only get them every other week. I get them 50% of the time, and I'm just like, dude, that 50% of the time means so much more now.
Yeah.
Because before I just had them, and sometimes you take them for granted, like, oh, I go to work every day, I do this hustle, I do that, my family's there. But then you realize your kids are old, your family's, your wife is still there doing the same thing, waiting for you, and you're like, no, I don't spend time with them. I'll go out with my buddies from work, or I'll go to these business meetings or trips, but I never just go
Yeah.
watch my kid play soccer.
Yeah. That's finding the balance, finding out your balance and working with that. But yes, you're so right about that. Being able to find where, and having other people there to help you and guide you with those. Because we do run through that.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, like, we don't know, because once again, nobody's ever taught us as kids or adults or whatever it is, like, hey, this is how you love. This is how you should have a relationship. This is how you express yourself emotionally. This is how you talk to somebody. Nobody's ever taught us that this is how you lose in life. Like, who would teach you how to lose in life? You know what I'm saying? But I think at some point, all of us start losing in life. Like, something happens. Like, even if you're really successful in work, that isn't life. That's just work. Like you were talking about, we need that balance. And how do we get that balance in life? I think balance is going to be one of the key things to being an unbreakable man.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that balance, you're ready to break. And at any point, it could just go any direction. So I think part of being an unbreakable man, I think one of the biggest things we have to think about is just how do we have this balance in our life, and with our emotions, and with our feelings, and with our thoughts, and with our work, and with our family. And that seems like a lot right there. But it's being in a community. It's being able to talk to Royal and being like, hey, like, can we talk for a couple of minutes? Just sit down. And I realized that just sitting down with somebody and talking to them for a couple of minutes takes off so much weight. It's like I
Yes,
have
it
the weight
does.
of the world on my shoulders. And the time I leave Royal, it's just left there. It's like, all right, I can walk out of this room and maybe I leave it right here, but you don't have to pick it up either. It's just like, it's left, it's gone, it's not on me anymore. And I think that's a big thing about community, the unbreakable men, and just in general, just being an unbreakable family and having an unbreakable life. Because part of being breakable is learning how to lose too. Because if you just learn how to win your whole life, I don't know, that's not really winning. It's just,
Being selfish. And
yeah, exactly.
locking it all. And
Life too often is a give and take, and sometimes we have to give and sometimes we have to take.
yes.
But I think we're probably getting pretty close to the end.
Yes.
And we don't want to, take too much of your guys' time. We appreciate you guys tuning in and actually listening to the Unbreakable Man podcast. And I think that, as we move forward, we're just going to have so much good conversations of different men in this room that you guys will be able to listen to and actually hear them and their perspectives of life, love, relationships, and everything else. So if you are able to give maybe or leave somebody with something today from our conversations, or maybe they're listening, there's something that you would like them to know, what do you think that would be, Royal? Anything specific that pops out, or is there anything that that's kind of
No,
so
just where are they at? Where are we? Where do you need guidance at? I mean, we all do. I mean, it just all depends on what's what's uh what's what's hurting right now. How can how can you be helped? How can we help as well is the biggest thing.
mm,
You know.
that's big.
Yeah.
How can we help? How
Yeah.
can we help? Because we don't want to just get on this podcast and be by ourselves. We
Yeah.
actually want you guys to chime in and let us know. So we do have a Facebook page. Please check us out. It's going to be the Unbreakable Men's Group.
Mhm.
You guys could join that. It's open for any men.
Yes.
And we want you guys to join. And I think there's already a couple contributors that are contributing some really good stuff every day. And there's something you can go on there and get encouragement. Also, if you need help with something, just go up there and post it. And all of us are willing to come out and help you and just talk with you and just let you know you're not alone. And it is a safe place for men to go
Mhm.
that you could talk to other men and feel comfortable bringing whatever you have on you. And that's one thing we really wanted to do is just in this Unbreakable group, and the Unbreakable websites come in, Unbreakable Men websites come in, is just let you know that you aren't alone, that you do have a safe space, and that you do have a community around you. And maybe you don't know us, but we want to get to know you guys, and we do want you to be part of our family. It's not just a community, it's a family.
Mhm.
So we encourage you guys to hop on Facebook, join the group, and the website will be coming pretty soon to where you guys could hop on there and subscribe and hear the podcast and everything else too. And we just encourage you guys, just one day at a time, one step at a time,
Mhm.
to just start breaking out of that shell and that hardness that we've had our whole lives, and just realize it's all right. It's okay. It's okay not to be okay. It's all right to talk about your emotions and feelings. And we're not here to judge you. We're here to help you.
Yeah, and give us some feedbacks on what you're looking for and what you need help with, and
Yeah,
that so we can be able to be there for that.
absolutely. Love it.
Yeah.
Until next time, you guys, this has been Unbreakable Men with Jacob and Royal.
Yeah.
And we look forward to having more of these for you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Woo.